Welcome to another episode of Your County. I'm your host, Dianne Parker, and today on the show we have Casey Williams. He is the director of the Disaster and Emergency Services Department here in Yellowstone County. Thanks so much for stopping by the studio, Casey.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So we're talking today about an overview of your department, everything that you do. One thing that we were just chatting about before the show started is the Code Red. So this is your alert system. So for those of you out there watching, if you haven't signed up for Code Red yet, it's very easy to do. You can get the app.
Yes.
And talk to us about the benefits of this, because a lot of folks out there actually haven't signed up yet.
They haven't, and
Yeah.
so the benefit is well, one, it's the only emergency alerting system that we have in the county to send out messages to the people if we're having a bad episode, whether it's a flood, a fire, a active shooter, whatever it is. The added benefit is as Code Red develops, we can also send out messages about street closures and utility problems and things like that. I travel a lot, so I also like the benefit of I'm alerted on my phone if I travel into an emergency area. If I'm out of the state or in an area that I don't know, and they send out a Code Red message, I get it on my phone as well. I also have told it to monitor my children's addresses. So they live out of state, all over the country. If something bad happens in their neck of the woods, my phone alerts me that they're having a tornado, a flood, or whatever. So it's a really good tool to stay informed so that you can make educated, safe decisions for yourself or your friends or your loved ones or anything like that. Sometimes here in Montana, thank goodness, we don't have a lot of disasters. So it doesn't really go off very often. And sometimes I have had people say, well, I signed up, but I never got an alert. Well, good.
Yep.
We don't want to get the alert. We don't want to be in those areas that are disasters. But in the event that we have something, that's the best way to stay notified so that you can make better decisions for yourself.
Right. So I signed up for it. It was so easy. It took me probably 2 minutes. You go to the website, you put in your address, your phone number, if you want to put your email. But even a better way to do it is to go download the app. Like Casey said, then you have the app. It's with your phone. Your phone's with you all the time. You travel on vacation. You're going to be alerted.
Yes.
So just get the app. That's the easiest thing to do.
If you'll text Yellowstone to 99411, just text the word Yellowstone to 99411. It'll pop back up on, give you the link. You hit it. It's really easy to sign up, and it's totally free. An example, right now there's 712. I just checked it before I walked in. There's 712 Code Red messages across the United States. From Alaska all the way down to San Jose, California, all the way over to the East Coast. So if you were traveling, you would be traveling into and out of some of those alerts, and you would know what was going on.
Yep. And this ranges from anything, high wind alerts. It could be tornadoes, severe flooding, flash flooding, and
civil unrest.
Yes. Shootings.
Shootings. You name it.
Okay.
We can send out a message for anything.
Yeah, and you can customize it too. So if you don't want to sign up for those high wind warnings here in Montana, you don't have to.
Right.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, talk to us a little bit about your department and how COVID has impacted that. What are some of the things that you've had to prepare for with this pandemic?
So the Department of Emergency Management deals with any type of public safety emergency. Health emergencies are one of the big ones that we have to deal with. So through the course of this, what seems like unending pandemic, it's been our job to make sure that our healthcare system had the resources necessary to meet the demand that was put on the healthcare system. So what we've done through our department is work with the healthcare, Riverstone Health, Billings Clinic, St. Vincent, the state of Montana, DPHHS, and the federal government. And we've brought in literally millions of dollars worth of personnel in the form of healthcare workers. We've helped them get National Guard assets, equipment. We've brought in 40 additional ventilators, other medical supplies and things like that. So all of those resources that come in to respond to a healthcare issue it's our job to coordinate that and make sure that we get the resources and apply for them correctly, track them, keep up with them, and then send them back when we don't need them. So it's been an ongoing, what seems like never-ending thing. The good news is, at the moment, and I'll knock on wood here, the Omicron variant of the virus seems to be waning in the number of people that it has. So we've been through that. The DES office is also one of the 4 unified health commanders for the county. We have a unified health command system here. Those plans were set up before the pandemic, so when it happened, that's what we did. So we've also been working closely with the vaccination clinics and the testing clinics and things like that.
So what was that like for you, being the director and going through this? I mean, the pandemic has had so many different phases of it, but I know to begin with, everyone was just kind of shocked. We didn't know what was going on. You had to step up and make all of these decisions. What was that like?
Well, scary, because, we're dealing with, when it first happened back in 20, you're dealing with a virus that nobody knew anything about, and we were told, and it proved that it could be very deadly, and very make you extremely ill. So just because you're the DES director, you and your family aren't immune to being affected by the disease. So on a personal note, I've had to deal with and migrate through all of the pandemic things that everybody else has, either with the mandates or with just trying to stay safe and not get it. By the way, I've had it twice.
Oh, wow. Well, thank goodness you're okay.
Yes, and I have been vaccinated, and I have had it twice. But on the professional side of it, it's really not very different than responding to almost any emergency. We have our plans in place. There's protocols. There's ways that we work within the local, state, and federal governments to transmit information and get resources. And this particular disaster was backwards from every other disaster in the U.S. history since FEMA became a thing, in that normally a disaster begins locally, it escalates up to the state level, then the federal level, and then as it gets better, the federal declaration goes away, the state declaration goes away, and then the locals. This one started as a federal declaration, then a state, and then a local. So it's been a little bit backwards. And even though we're not under a state of emergency locally, we still are federally.
Right.
So that was a little bit different because some of the rules with interacting with FEMA specific to COVID are different than interacting with the state and federal government on any other type of disaster. So that was challenging, but the Unified Health Command and the healthcare people that are part of that have done a fantastic job in trying to manage what seems to be an unmanageable thing. And you have to constantly juggle the politics and the emotion with the biology and the healthcare side of it. And sometimes that's been quite challenging, but I think overall, Yellowstone County's done a fairly good job.
Yeah, very interesting when you look at it at the big picture. Have you started sending anything back yet? Like you mentioned, in any of the equipment or emergency things that you were able to get through FEMA?
Oh yeah, we've received and sent back multiple times some of the stuff. So some of the equipment that we got, we've started to send some of that back. We still have a few of the ventilators and things here. The personnel, which was the big issue. So we've received teams, federal medical teams, in to help us in the critical times, and they've gone back. We've received and sent back numerous National Guard people, and it's wound up being several hundred healthcare workers and National Guards people, and millions of dollars in expenses going back and forth to take care of, because Yellowstone County doesn't just take care of Yellowstone County citizens. We're the major regional medical hub for a huge area. Yeah. We cover over 600,000 people spread out over 3 or 4 states. So
Yeah.
It was really important that the hospitals were able to ramp it up, step it up, and take excellent care of people during the pandemic and during the times that were more challenging. We're still not out of the woods, so I would encourage everybody to remain wise.
Yep.
Just if you don't feel comfortable getting around crowds and you don't feel comfortable being out and about, don't be. And if you do feel comfortable doing that, then just do it with respect to the other people that are around you.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about online threats that have happened at schools. I know I've seen on the news, and as just being a parent too, we've been notified from School District 2 here in Billings. There's an online threat that's happening nationwide, and will it impact our schools locally? And there's stepped up precautions. How does that work? What are you seeing on the back end of that?
So I get a report twice a day from our federal agencies that describe a lot of the cyber threats and things, and that's one of the high priority things. And you can't, and our police departments and school system do an excellent job of responding to those, because you can't ignore it.
Yep.
But you also can't live in a state of fear and let the cyber attacks drive your everyday business. So when they receive the threats, and it would be threats over the internet, maybe somebody threatening to do something, or you have the true cyber where it tries to crash your system or get rid of information or hold you for ransom. So we have both of those things happen in our county all the time. And the school district, for those threats, do the right thing. They report the threat, they investigate it. The officials with law enforcement evaluate the credibility of the threat. They always have acted on the side of caution and safety and not taking things for granted, and do the best that they can to maintain a state of civility and normalcy and safety. And we still have to educate our children. People still have to go to work. And balance that with how credible is the risk. We need to make sure that we take care of it and not put anybody in undue harm. So it's something that that our law enforcement agency and the school districts work really, really well together. The FBI, of course, is also part of that system with the Fusion Center, where they track those type of threats, and they let law enforcement know this is credible, somewhat credible, very credible, expect this, or when we get the surprise ones, they really do a good deal about investigating. You'll notice we do sometimes lock down the school, or sometimes make adjustments here, and that is we're making sure that we try to keep our teachers and students and public safe. So.
Right. Any
but
advice?
It's something we deal with every day.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any advice for parents out there, or anyone who's seeing some of these threats online, as far as, what's the best thing to do? Should they be sharing them? How do they know if they're credible? Where do they go to find out?
If you see something, say something.
Okay.
The best thing that we can do to keep our schools and kids safe is report it. It'll be evaluated, and it'll be investigated if necessary. The threats that happen that generally lead to a more violent situation are somebody didn't feel comfortable reporting it, or they knew about it, but I don't really know if I want to get involved with this, or I don't really think they'll do that, and it winds up being a tragedy. And we've seen that in the news and at places all over the place. So the best advice is, if you hear something or see something, report it. You can report it to the school official, the principal, a teacher, if you don't feel comfortable going there, or your law enforcement. Call it in. If you have a copy of a text or an email or something, then maybe you want to send that to the law enforcement so that they can get on top of it.
Okay. What if it's something more big picture? Like, I remember something going around pretty recently that was, on a certain date, I think on a Friday or something at school, that there was a nationwide threat saying even elementary schools could be affected. Nothing really ended up happening. I saw a lot of folks online sharing that. Mm-hmm. What's the best thing to do there as a parent or as someone online, I guess?
So there's a couple of things.
Yeah.
So we have the real threats that are really happening, and you have the Facebook made up misinformation or disinformation that we've become very accustomed to now. I think everybody knows that if your official source is Facebook, it's not so official,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But when we hear about these national things, we're hearing about it on social media after the law enforcement and the FBI and the ATF, they're hearing about this. They get those, that's monitored every single day. Like I said, I get a report twice a day from the information cyber security for the nation that gives us all of those type of threats so that as a county we can be prepared. Law enforcement, if they get information that something bad would be happening from our friends at the FBI that would notify the local law enforcement, they'll react to it and respond to it and put a plan to deal with it. They communicate with the schools. So as a parent, and I am, I want to be made aware. I want to know what's going on. But I also want to be confident that the school officials and the law enforcement officials are on top of it. If I don't think they know, I'm going to report it.
Right.
But if it's all over Facebook, they probably do know, but everybody has to make their own decisions. If you feel more comfortable not going to school that day, then that's a choice that a parent has that you can do that. And if you do feel comfortable that it'll be taken care of, then you have that choice as well. But just always be aware. You need to be aware. We live in a society today where people need to take personal responsibility of their situational awareness. You really need to know what's going on around you, what are your threats, what are the hazards, and what are you going to do about it.
Yep. All right, well, let's talk about one more important thing to Montana, and that is the drought. We have been in the middle of this drought. I know we're taping this, it's still winter here, but, you know, fire season is coming up.
Fire season is coming up. We are still classified in severe drought in Yellowstone County. The water equivalent in the snowpack for the Yellowstone Basin is in the 80% of normal, so we're behind on our moisture content, we're behind on the water, and everything from the National Weather Service points toward the drought continuing. So for the agricultural community, you want to be prepared. Now's the time to start thinking about how you're going to get your hay or how you're going to irrigate or things like that. We just had a record low flow of the Yellowstone River back in November, December, with not a whole lot of water being accumulated in the mountains to replenish that. So the drought is anticipated to be here. Fire season should start a little bit earlier this year like it did last year. The fuels are dry, the conditions are right. We need to be aware, and if drought has an impact on you or your business, now's the time to start thinking about how you're going to work around it.
Right, I think this season we've even seen a couple of fires in the middle of winter, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's very unusual, right?
Well, it used to be.
Okay.
But climate change has shifted the weather patterns across the nation. As if you'll know, I mean, where we have massive flooding up and down the Mississippi in the middle part of our country. There's a big ice storm, snowstorm happening in the southeastern United States today. There's a freeze warning in San Jose, California today. And we're now in a long-term drought period that we'll have to deal with, and even the National Weather Service changed its new normals for temperature and precipitation. They do that every 10 years, and ours changed a little bit this year. So we're in for quite a ride.
Oh, interesting. What did ours change to? What were some of the differences?
So the rain, average rainfall total went down just a hair, and across Montana it changed. Some counties a lot, some counties just a little bit. The average temperatures changed a little bit. to the warmer side. So we're slightly dry. Our new normal is slightly drier and slightly warmer than it was for forever.
Yeah.
So we're just moving into that weather cycle that we're going to be a little bit warmer. We're going to be a little bit drier for the predictable future.
Yeah.
So we need to make the plans and be aware that that's a threat to everybody here.
Yeah. Okay, well, very interesting. Well, before we go, can you remind folks one more time about Code Red? How do they get signed
Code
up?
Red.
Yeah.
Text Yellowstone to 99411 or go to the Yellowstone County website or the city website. There's a link that you can click on and sign up for it. I recommend everybody get a managed account where you can say, I want to be notified about this, but not that.
Yeah.
The more people that are signed up, the more people you have that get the information, and it makes us better prepared to take care of our neighbors and our friends. So I highly encourage everybody to sign up for that. And it's free.
It's free and it's so easy. It takes about 2 minutes. All right. Well, Casey Williams, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure.
Yep. This has been another episode of Your County. We'll see you next time.